Hi everyone, this is Rick with Ram Mounts, and today we're going to be providing an installation demo of the Ram Motorcycle Fork Stem Mounting Base. We're here at Hinshaw's Motorcycle Shop in Auburn, Washington, where they provide a wide variety of bikes and other power sports to choose from, and so this gives us a great opportunity to show how this mounting platform truly works. This will work with any motorcycle fork stem hole with a diameter range of 12 to 33 millimeters, and in today's example we'll be installing this on a 2012 Kawasaki ZX1400. So the Ram Motorcycle Fork Stem Base comes with a few different pieces of hardware. You have the ball base itself, you have a set of tooth grip washers with different sizes depending on the size of your fork stem hole, you have a rubberized expansion plug, and lastly you have a hardware pack that consists of stainless steel washers and a screw and a bolt. Now the tools required in this installation will be a 3mm Allen wrench along with a box knife or blade. So first you're going to take your rubber expansion plug and you're simply going to insert this into your motorcycle's fork stem hole. You're going to let it rest gently, but then you put a little bit of pressure on it, give it a little bit of a twist, and then notice when you remove the plug, it's going to leave a mark on your plug. Now this mark is going to be your top mark or your top cut. You're actually going to cut right along this line using your box cutter or knife. Now depending on your motorcycle, some fork stem holes are quite a bit larger, and you might notice that when you drop this plug into the hole, it might bottom out where this top part of the cone meets with the plug center hole. If that's the case, you're actually going to insert using the wide end first. You're going to take the larger side of your expansion plug, you're going to insert this down into those larger fork stem holes. This part of the plug looks straight, but it is actually tapered inward. It is cone shaped, it's just much shorter and much wider than the narrow portion. So for those larger fork stem holes, you're just going to insert downward and follow the same instructions. So here we have all the hardware that comes with your fork stem mount, including the rubber expansion plug with the top mark that we just made in our first step. Now we're going to take our box cutter or knife, and you're simply going to cut right along that mark that was made when you first inserted this into the expansion plug. So once you've made your top cut, you're going to discard the top portion of your plug. So now you just have the smaller portion here. Next you're going to measure down exactly 1 inch. So you take your ruler, measure exactly 1 inch down, and then you're going to mark where that spot is at here. So you measure down 1 inch, mark your spot, and then you're going to make your second cut on the expansion plug. Once you've made your second cut, you're now going to discard the smaller portion of your plug. So now you have exactly a 1 inch segment that you're going to use for installing with these other washers here. Next, we're going to select the proper tooth grip washer for installing onto the narrow end of your expansion plug. Now in this given setup, it's going to be the one that best fits the narrow end of your plug. And comparing all these here, the best one is going to be the smallest of the bunch here. So you're going to take that smallest one, you're simply going to twist this away from the chain link, and you're going to discard these other ones here. So you're going to take this along with the brass nut with the blue nylock facing outward is going to insert into the pocket, and you're going to set this to the side. Next, you're going to select the appropriate stainless steel washer that's going to be used in your assembly. And this is the one that's going to come closest to matching the wider portion of your expansion plug here. So of this setup, the third to the smallest is going to be the one that we're going to use. But whatever washer you end up using, it's very important that the washer can fit inside your fork stem hole. You'll want to check the fork stem hole of your bike to make sure this fits inside first. But once you've selected the correct one, you're simply going to align it with the top of your expansion plug, and this is the washer that you're going to use. So now we've set aside all the hardware that we're not using, and now we can put all these together using our Allen wrench. So first you're going to take the bolt and you're going to insert downward into the motorcycle fork stem base. Next you're going to take your stainless steel washer, insert over the threads. Then you're going to take your expansion plug with the wide end first going over the threads. Next you're going to take your grip washer with the brass nut inside with the blue nylock facing up. You're going to insert this over the expansion plug here. Now with all this held together, you're going to take your 3mm Allen wrench and you're simply going to begin tightening the screw so that it engages with the threads of the brass nut on the inside here. So you give it a few turns, you'll feel it start to engage. If it's not quite working, if the screw is not protruding enough, that means you may have not cut the narrow end of your expansion plug down enough. The second cut that you made may need to come down a little bit more. If not though, you should be able to feel the threads engage on there. And so you start to tighten it. You're going to want to hold this washer in place while you're tightening, otherwise it's just going to spin freely. So you hold this in place and tighten to a point where you're going to feel the teeth marks of this washer start to bite onto that expansion plug, and when it's biting on there, then you know it's starting to get held in place properly. and then we can assemble this into our bike. So now it's time to install your fork stem base assembly into the fork stem hole. Now if the expansion plug was cut correctly, this should have a little bit of friction when you're pressing inside, and it should just pop right into place with some pressure here. You'll notice the ball's loose, but the plug keeps it in there pretty tight. Now if you have too much trouble putting this in the hole, if the expansion plug is too thick, you may need to go back a couple of steps and trim down the top part of your expansion plug just a little bit more so you can make sure that it goes securely in here. But the entire top portion of your fork stem base should be the only part that's actually visible. The rest should be hidden and secured inside of the fork stem hole. So this is what it should look like when it's in there properly. Next, you take your Allen wrench and you simply continue tightening down on the screw. And as you tighten down, it's going to continue expanding that expansion plug inside of the fork stem hole, and it's going to keep getting tighter. After a couple turns, if you don't notice it getting tighter, that means that the nut on the inside is spinning freely and the expansion plug is not actually expanding. So if that's the case, you'll have to pull your assembly back out with a bit of strength. You're going to have to continue tightening by hand at first. You grip onto the assembly here, tighten this down a little bit more. You have to hold on to the assembly while tightening. You want to make sure that the actual grip washer is gripping onto the expansion plug as it's going in there. So now you can insert and then continue tightening down. So you know that it's tightening properly when you notice just after a couple turns that the screw is getting tighter and tighter. That means the expansion plug is expanding and it is tightening up as you keep going. So now with roughly 20 more turns or so, 10 to 20 turns, you're going to just keep tightening down on this screw. Eventually it's going to tighten down to a point where you cannot tighten by hand any further. So periodically check on how tight this is as you're installing this and as you're tightening down with the Allen head. If you need to make any adjustments, you can always loosen, pull the assembly out, you can disassemble, you can maybe even make minor trims to the expansion plug, whether it's on the wide end or on the narrow side, and then you can simply reinsert with your adjustments and follow the same steps to tighten this back down. But eventually, as you can see, you'll have a rock solid mounting platform. Then when you have this finished, you can then connect your RAM components. In our example, we have the short double socket arm, followed by the X-Grip universal small phone holder. This comes with a safety tether, but we won't show in this example. You can set this to the perfect viewing angle and then tighten down with the knob on the side. And as you can see, you now have a secure, rock-solid mounting platform, dead center on your bike, low profile. Whether you're holding a phone, camera, GPS, radar detector, any device that you want on your bike, Ram Mounts has you covered. All made in the USA and backed with a lifetime warranty. Simply insert your device and you're ready to ride.